So Biden is on the campaign trail, and if he's not stuttering and stumbling and forgetting basic things, he's making stories up. So MSNBC responded to a story where Biden is making stuff up by attempting to turn it into a positive. I kid you not.
According to the Post, during a campaign stop in New Hampshire last Friday, Biden quoted, quote, jumbled elements of at least 3 actual events into one story of bravery, compassion, and regret that never actually happened.
Young Navy captain, Navy, up in the mountains in the Konar Valley in Afghanistan. One of his buddies got shot, fell down a ravine about 60 feet. 4-star general asked me whether I'd go up into the fob. Now everybody got concerned, the vice president going up in the middle of this, but we can lose a vice president. We can't lose many more of these kids. This guy climbed down a ravine, carried this guy up on his back under fire, and the general wanted me to pin the silver star on him. I got up there and stand, this is God's truth, my word as a Biden. He stood at attention. I went to pin him, I said, sir, I don't want the damn thing. Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir, do not do that. He died. He died.
So the Washington Post report reads like this. In the space of 3 minutes, Biden got the time period, the location, the heroic act, the type of medal, the military branch, and the rank of the recipient wrong, as well as his own role in the ceremony. According to the Post, Biden visited the Konar province in Afghanistan in 2008 as a U.S. senator, not as vice president. The service member who performed the celebrated rescue that Biden described there was a 20-year-old Army specialist, not a Navy captain. And that soldier, Kyle J. White, never had a Silver Star or any other medal pinned on him by Biden. After that article was published, Biden then spoke with Washington Post opinion columnist Jonathan Capehart. He suggested he was telling the story of Army Staff Sergeant Chad Workman, who did receive a medal from the vice president in 2011 and didn't believe he deserved it, although none of the details he offered, almost none of the details he offered, matched what happened to Workman.
These sort of stories are following Joe Biden around
Right.
a good bit, not just because of this campaign, but also because of past campaigns. I'm smiling only because politicians and preachers and Hollywood screenwriters have often jumbled the best of 2 or 3 stories into one story that they use to make a much larger point. That doesn't forgive it. But Gene Robinson, somebody compared this to what Hillary Clinton did in Bosnia, where she was talking about taking gunfire, or many of the lies Donald Trump tells about himself. Only difference, and perhaps it's an insignificant difference in the larger scheme of things. Here, Biden tells a story to lift up others, to glorify others. In the case of Hillary in Bosnia or Donald Trump every day on Twitter, those exaggerations are to lift themselves up. Again, maybe that's too fine of a point. I just don't think many voters are going to say, I'm not voting for Joe Biden because he jumbled up 2 or 3 acts of heroism by our men and women in uniform to praise them. Boy, I'm shocked and disgusted.
Yeah, I actually don't think that's a small or insignificant point, that distinction between trying to make yourself look brave and heroic when you weren't, and celebrating and recognizing the heroism of service members in these impossible situations. And Biden was trying to do the latter.
So I think the essential truth here is that he really cares about the bravery of our soldiers. He cares about kids exposed to gun violence. And the fact that he does what you and I and all of us always do is sometimes mishmash up some stories. That makes him human, not a bad person.
Compare this with the story we covered about Bernie Sanders punching the punching bag. Now, to be fair, that was CNN and not MSNBC, but on CNN, they covered Bernie punching one of those punching bags I forget what they're called. The ones that hang down and you punch them and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You like my layman's explanation of this. And one of the first times he punches it, it comes back and almost touches him or maybe just taps him, and so he backs away a little bit. And they covered it like, ha ha ha, Bernie, ha ha ha, got TKO'd by the back, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, stupid, ha ha ha. He's like Trump because of this for some reason or something. Now, Biden is on the campaign trail lying, just lying, telling stories that are not true to embellish them and make them sound, more extreme and more movie-like than they are. And they say, well, this is okay because he's trying to glorify the troops. Oh, the troops. And then they're comparing with Trump. Every lie he tells is to bolster himself. They even brought up, I don't know why, Hillary's lie about taking fire in Bosnia when that didn't happen. How was that to glorify anybody else? That wasn't to glorify anybody else. What are you talking about? In the case of Trump, he's a pathological liar. He lies about everything, over and over. So now here's the thing. Are people saying, oh my God, here's one isolated Biden incident and, that's it? No, we're saying, look at this trend. He is struggling to get out sentences on the campaign trail and during debates. That's not an exaggeration. That's not me putting any spin on it. It's crystal clear to anybody who's, maintaining even a minimum level of objectivity watching this. He's struggling to talk. His brain is seemingly sputtering out. And now also throw in stories that are a mess and that are not true, and maybe not, or a mix of three different stories that he put into one story. It just doesn't paint a picture of somebody who's in shape to be in office. Now, add on to that his terrible policy beliefs, and we got one big hell no coming out of that formula. I'm not interested in Joe Biden because his policies are way too pro-status quo, not in favor of big structural change, and then also he seems legitimately mentally unfit, in a similar way that Trump seems mentally unfit. So, no, I'm not. This is not a candidate that I'm interested in. But MSNBC made a decision here to cover this, and instead of talking about, oh my God, look at how every day, not even every other day, every day he says something that's insane, and that's wrong, and that's not true, and that's like a giant brain fart. And they don't talk about this honestly, where they bring up the whole amalgamation of things that have happened. They gaslight and they obfuscate and they act like, this shows he's a good person. Yay! That last guy that's the argument he was making. It shows he's human and he's a good person. What? What are you talking about? Not good, man. Really not good. Look at the coverage of the candidates they like versus the ones they don't like. And don't tell me there's no bias. Don't tell me there's no perspective. There is. There is. The difference between our show and what mainstream media is doing is that I tell you all my beliefs up front. I'm not hiding anything. I'm very pro-Bernie. I'm in favor of a social democratic system. I don't need to go through the litany of the things I believe in for you guys because most of you already know anyway. But I'm telling you what I believe, and then we're having a discussion about various news events and various political candidates and things that are happening and whatnot. But it's all out there for you. On MSNBC and on CNN and all these outlets, they're pretending like they're above the fray and they're objective and they're just calling balls and strikes. And then they have the nerve to do segments going after Bernie because he punched a punching bag and it came back and almost hit him, and defending Biden when he's telling outright lies on the campaign trail. And you wonder why people despise mainstream media and trust in mainstream media is at an all-time low. Well, now you know why. Because you got Fox News, which is just a propaganda arm of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. That's what they are. MSNBC, which is a propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, the establishment Democrats, the centrists, the corporatists. And you have the rest of the outlets, whether it's CNN, whether it's CBS, ABC News, the nightly news, and they're just all day long an establishment bias in favor of both parties, and a neutrality bias. So it's all biased through a particular lens, and the last thing that lens does is provide a serious, accurate picture of the world that we live in. the final thing I want to say is this. Imagine for a second it was Bernie Sanders who was making stories up on the campaign trail. What would MSNBC's reaction be? Would they play defense for him? It shows he's a good person because he's lying about the right stuff. No, they would say, candidacy over, step aside, you're done. But when it's Biden, it's a different tune.